Creating the basic armature for binding is what we're going to do in this lesson, but first I want to take a moment and talk about bone naming. Now, it's always a good idea to name your bones as you move along. Now, in most cases, naming your bones will be fairly intuitive, but in certain instances, using suffix and prefix will actually help. For example, for prefixes, I like to use L and R for left and right, as well as F and B for front and back. So you can have an LF for left front or a LB for left back, and so on and so forth. However, it's really important to combine them with an underscore, otherwise it will not work with symmetrized options. Now, in terms of suffix, I like to differentiate my controls with the suffix. For example, you could have a bone that ends with IK because it's a bone specific to an IK chain, not necessarily the constrained bone itself, but one of the bones from that IK chain. Now, you could also use SL for stretchy limbs, or C for controller bone, T for target bone, PV for pole vector, and OS for offset. All right, so and so on and so forth. So it's just a little tip to help you when you're actually trying to figure out what to name your bone. Use a mix of suffix and prefix that are simple and that actually shortens the name of the bones. Otherwise, you'll end up with some pretty long naming of the bones, and that usually makes it a little bit harder to work with. All right, if you open C_02_robo_rigging_start.blend, then you are presented with this awesome looking little robot. And basically it's the continuity from the previous lesson. So you can go ahead and open that up so you can follow along. And then the first thing that we're going to do is press Shift C so we can reset the 3D cursor at the center of the world. And then from there, I'm going to expand this a little so we can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to make sure that my lock object mode is off. And I will make this to active limit, which is basically the transform pivot point. All right. So from there, we're going to go to wireframe mode because it's easier to actually put the bone at the right place in wireframe mode. So I'm going to press Shift A and we're going to add an armature in there. And we're going to go to the armature panel, open the viewport display, and we're going to switch this to B bone, and we're going to check in everything. All right, so we're going to switch to pose mode, and then from there, we're going to tab into edit mode. So when I tab out, it's going to be in pose mode. All right, so now I'm in edit mode. I'm going to scale that bone down, and since I'm set to the actual active element, it scales from the base. And then I will press Ctrl Alt S to actually make that bone a little bit smaller. And this will be the root bone. Now, if I expand the armature here, I can go name the bone. So I press Shift and then I clicked on the armature. So I expand the entire armature. And I'm going to rename that bone root. All right. Now, I want the body bone to be directly at the center. So to do that, I'm going to select the object here. I'm going to tab into edit mode and I'm going to go select the vertices. I'm going to go to the side view and I'm going to select that vertice right there. Directly in the middle on both sides. And I'm going to press Shift S, and then from there I'm going to choose cursor to select it. So we have the cursor directly at the center. So I'm going to tab out of there. I'm going to select the bone again, and then I'm going to go back to the side view, tab into edit mode, Shift D to duplicate the bone, Shift S, and choose selection to cursor. And then from there we're going to rename that bone body. So we've got a body bone. Now there's a shaft for the rotor that pops out, and then there's the rotor here, the front rotor. So let's actually duplicate this bone. So Shift D, and I'm going to press Z to bring it down a little bit. And we're going to make it a little bit skinnier. And let's scale it up a little. So that's going to be the shaft. All right, so we're going to name that one shaft. And then let's duplicate this bone again. So Shift D and then Z and bring it about. And we're going to call this one rotor. So F for front underscore rotor. So we got the front rotor. Now from there, we need to be able to do the blades, and there's 4 blades on there. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tab out of this, select the object, tab into edit mode, and I'm going to come and select that row of edge right there by pressing Alt and clicking on the edge. So it's going to select the loop. And then from there, I'm going to press Shift S and then cursor selected, tab out of there, select a bone, and then go back into side view, tab into edit mode. I'm going to select the shaft bone and I'm going to duplicate that. So Shift D and then Shift S and selection to cursor. And then from there, I'm going to grab the tip and I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to bring the tip to the pointiness here to where it's pointy. So that's the tip of the actual blade. Now from there, I'm going to call that back blade. So B_blade. Right? And then from there, if I want to easily do all four of them, I'm going to select the rotor bone here. If I can, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger like that so it's easier to select. All right, so select that, press Shift S and cursor to selected. And then from there, select the blade, go to the top view by pressing 7 on the numpad, and then switch this to 3D cursor. From there, I'm going to press Shift D, R, and then 90. Shift D, R, 90 on the numpad and enter. Shift D, 90 on the R, and then 90 on the numpad. So I'm going to undo that one. So R, 90, enter. So now I've got all four of them. So this is the back blade. So this one should be the front blade. So we're going to switch this to an F and we're going to erase the 002. And then this one should be the left one. So we're going to call that left. And then we're going to erase the 001. And then for that one, that should be the right one. So it's R. And I'm going to erase that part. And there you go. So now we've got the blade. So we can also do the same thing to actually get the blade at the back. So let's get that rotor in place. I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to select this vertice. Press Ctrl L to select the object. Shift S. Cursor to selected. Tab out of there. Select one of the bone. And then go back to side view. It's easier. Tab into edit mode. Shift D. And we're going to do Shift S and selection to cursor. I'm going to switch this back to active element. I'm going to do RY90. So it's on the side like that. And I'm going to call this one B_rotor. So it's the back rotor. All right. So we've got these parts. So now let's actually do the legs real quick. So I'm going to tab out of there, select the object, go into edit mode. I'm going to switch this to faces. I'm going to select that face there. Shift S, cursor selected, tab out of there. And then from there, I'm going to select the bone. I'm going to go to the side view. I'm going to grab this one. I'm going to go enter edit mode and then Shift D. I'm going to go Shift S and selection to cursor. From there, I'm going to do R in 180. Since I'm on the side view, it's automatically rotating from the view. And then I'll scale that about and I'm going to go Control Alt S to make it skinnier. And then we want it to be about at the middle right there. All right, so I'm going to tab out of this, select the object, go into edit mode, switch to the actual edge. Then from there, I'm going to try to get that edge. Then Shift S, cursor to selected, tab out of there, grab the bone, tab into edit mode, select the end point of the actual bone, and then Shift S, selection to cursor. Now let's name that one. So that's the front. So FL, so LF for left front, underscore, that would be the shoulder. So let's call it shoulder. So let's call it shoulder. And then we need to be able to have a arm right here. So we're going to go into face mode. I'm going to try to select these face and I'm going to go Shift S. Cursor to selected. Gonna tab out of there. Select the bone. Tab into edit mode. Select the endpoint. Extrude that about. Go Shift S. Selection to cursor. And then let's quickly extrude it about. Let's go into edit mode here. Select that entire part. Shift S. Cursor to selected. Tab out of there. Select the bone. Select the end point, Shift S, selection to cursor, and then we have one more to do. So let's do that real quick. So I'm going to go right here. I'm going to select that edge. So go to edge mode, select that edge. Now that edge is not directly centered or aligned with the bone, so we're going to use it as a reference point instead. Shift S, cursor to selected, and then I'm going to tab out of there. Grab the bone, gonna extrude it about, And I'm just going to eyeball this one because otherwise it's going to off center it. As you can see, it's a little bit on the side. So I want this to be aligned properly. So having the bones all aligned properly for the legs will avoid some issues later on when we're trying to add some extra control like the Achilles and so on and so forth. All right, so to keep it aligned, we're not just going to snap it there, but we're just going to try to get as close as we can. And sometimes you want to avoid being directly on it because you want it to be straight, just like this. All right, so that would work. So that would be the left front. So if you expand this by pressing shift and clicking on it, now we are able to actually quickly rename that. So left front arm, left front arm, see, ARM, and then left front forearm. And let's call this one hand. All right, so now we've got the shoulder, the arm, the forearm, and the hand. Now we want the same here, so the easiest way to do that is to press Shift-C to snap the cursor back at the center of the universe. And then from there, let's select the actual bone, tab into edit mode, make sure that you're in 3D cursor and global mode. All right, so we're going to do Shift-D, and then from there, we're going to go S, Y, and -1. So we've basically just mirrored the entire chain of bone in the -Y. So we've mirrored it manually, basically. All right. So now what we want to do is we want to change how this is named. And instead of going to name them one by one, we can actually do that really quick. All right. So what we can do is press Control and then F2. All right. And make sure that you have the bones that you want to rename selected. And it's going to pop that batch rename window. From there, you switch this to bones. All right. And you want to do a find and replace. In this case, I want to replace all the F with B's. So you want to find F, capital F, and switch it with B's and make it case sensitive. Once you press OK, all the F have changed to B's. Now you want to remove the 001. So what you do is press Control F2 again. And the same thing, but what you want to do is you want to find the .001 and replace it with nothing. And then when we press OK, it goes and it removes that for you. So we've quickly renamed these bones and it only took a moment. Now we need to do the same thing for the other side or simply use symmetrize. So if I grab these bone and go to Armature and use symmetrize, it's automatically, or it should automatically symmetrize it on the other side. In this case, symmetrize is not working because we did not use an underscore in between the L and the F or the L and the B. And just because of that, symmetrize is not working. Now, we can rectify that later. And what we'll do here is we'll fix it manually. And then later on, we'll rename these. And so what you do is you simply Shift-D. And then from there, SX -1. So it's going to go on the other side, making a perfect mirror in -X. And then from there, we can change the names from L to R and then remove the 01. So Control F2. And from there, you want to find the L and replace it with R. So you press OK, and now they're all replaced with R. And from there, Control F2, and you want to replace the .001 with nothing. Just like that. And boom, you've renamed all those bones. It's already done. It's already renamed. We can bind these to the actual mesh. All right, so now we have to add bones for the iris. So let's actually quickly do that. All right, so I'm just gonna, again, grab that bone and duplicate that one. And what I will do is I will just simply make sure that I'm in active element. And I'm going to go back to local. I'm going to go that way. I'm going to go R180. And then I'm going to bring that about here. So this one, if you go to that view, and I'm going to scale it just like that. And I'm going to make it a lot skinnier. Okay, so we're going to call this one Iris 01. Or just 1, since there's only going to be 8. All right, so we want that to move from that part right there, all right, like it does right now. But we need 8 of them because there's 8 blades. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so we have 8 blades. So we're going to bring the cursor at the center here. So I'm going to grab that object and I'm going to try to grab that row of polygons right there. Should do the trick. I'm going to go Shift S, cursor to select it. So it's Z at the center. And I'm going to tab out of there. I'm going to select the iris bone. I'm going to go into edit mode and I will make sure that I'm set to 3D cursor, and I'm going to go to global and I will go to the front view and I will do Shift D R45, Shift D R45, enter on the numpad, Shift D R45 on the numpad, enter, Shift D R45, enter. You can alternatively use the shortcut Shift R to repeat the last action, but as you can see, I'm stubborn. I like to do stuff manually. So I've got my 8 bones. So I can go ahead and quickly rename those. Unfortunately for those, you'll have to go and do this. All right, it doesn't really take long because it's only 8 bones. 5, and then 6. And then 7. The reason I name as I go is simply because it's easier to find the bone if you know how it's named. All right. So now we've got most of the bones that we need except for the cables. So let's actually quickly do that. So let's quickly analyze that object. How many points does it have? All right, so we've got these 2 that we can put on the same point, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bones for the cable. All right, so that's what we're going to do here. So I'm going to go here and go Shift S, cursor selected, tab out of there. And then I'm going to grab that bone, Shift D, Shift S, section to cursor, and let's make it smaller and skinnier. All right, so I'm going to tab out of there real quick. I'm going to select this. I'm going to select that point, Shift S, cursor selected, tab out of there, select the bone, tab into edit mode, Shift D, and then Shift S, and then selection to cursor, tab out of there, select the object, select the dot, Shift S, cursor selected, tab out of there, select the bone. It's very repetitive, isn't it? So we're actually nearly done creating the base rig here. So it's actually pretty fast. I mean, when you think about it, it's only a few minutes. So it's like that. Dot, Shift S, cursor selected, select the bone, tab into edit mode, Shift D, and then Shift S, selection to cursor. And then let's select this one, Shift S, cursor selected, tab out of there, select the bone. Tab in there, Shift D, Shift S, selection to cursor, select the object again, Shift S, cursor selected, tab out of there, select the bone, tab in there, Shift D, Shift S, selection to cursor, tab out of there, select the last dot, Shift S, there you go, tab out of there, select the bone, Shift D, and then Shift S and selection to cursor. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly align them. Then we're going to name them. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to switch this to individual origin so I can rotate them like this. All right. We're going to quickly scale them so we can make sure that they're well aligned. And then we're going to scale them back down. So we're going to call this one cable 1. So cable 1 and then cable 2. Cable 2. I'm just going to do a copy. So Control C, and then Control V, and 3, Control V, backspace, 4, Control V, backspace, 5, Control V, backspace, 6, and then Control V, backspace, 7. All right, so now we're gonna actually parent all of these to the body bone. So the body bone is there. So we need these quads, these 4, to be parented to the rotor. So let's actually do that. So Control P, keep offset. We need the rotor to be following the shaft. So we're going to do that. Control P, keep offset. And then we need the shaft to follow the body. Control P, keep offset. I'm going to quickly make the body a little bit bigger so it's easier to access. All right, so we want the legs, the base of the legs, so the shoulders, as well as all the cables and all the iris to also follow the body bone. Control P, keep offset. And we want the body bone to follow the root bone. All right. So now, if in pose mode, if I grab the root, everything should follow. We forgot the rotor. All right. So it's always important to actually double check. Oh, I forgot one. And that's common, even for me. So we need to parent that one on the actual bone. All right. So now we've got the base armature, so we can start actually binding this. And we're going to do that in the next video.